Yeah, I'm in here. Are you going to be doing a like a Discord stream?
Yeah. I've absolutely never streamed before, so we will see what happens here. Okay. Alright, I should be live and good to go for anybody that is listening here. So, welcome,
Where's
guys.
your Where's your stream?
It is in the council chat if you want to pull that up. I linked it there. And you can see it right there. Guess I shouldn't pull that up on stream, but I'm going to have to get used to actually doing that. Anyway, it's not that big of a deal. So, any preliminary questions while I wait for anybody who is not yet in here before I get started? It's all going to be recorded, so if you got to dip out at any time, that's fine. All this information is here. But since I've got specifically 2 Warlock class leads who are my fellow class leads, do you guys have any preliminary questions before I get started?
Yeah, where's the download link?
The what?
WarcraftLogs.com.
Yeah, it's pulled up on my stream right there. www.warcraftlogs.com. So I'm getting my cup of coffee here ready. But so basically, what Warcraft Logs is for those uninitiated or unfamiliar with it, it's very intimidating.
Especially if this is going to be recorded, I'd like to request that.
Request what, Husk?
Testing.
Yeah, I can hear you, bud. What's up?
Pardon that troubleshooting. That the basics are touched upon as well. Simple things like looking at a certain player's profile, that sort of thing.
Yeah, we're gonna go through all that. I'm just gonna kind of introduce you guys to what this is, and it's very intimidating at a first glance to use this program, to get into it, but it is very much an equivalent to simulation craft, which I'm sure all of you, most of you, very least the vast majority of you, have heard of, have used at some point in time. Think of simulation craft as the ideal for theory. Think of Warcraft logs as the practical reality of what's being done on any fight at any given time. And what that means is that everything Simcraft sets out to show in an ideal situation, Warcraft logs shows in a real situation. Down to your casts, down to the exact time that you move, down to literally everything that you do in a fight that's being recorded. It's an absolutely fantastic tool. I'm really not gonna have time to make my coffee while I'm talking this, so Carrie, would you mind fixing that for me? Thank you, dear. Okay. Alright, so let's get into this right here. This is the baseline screen for Warcraft logs right here. And first thing you're going to want to do when you pull this up is you're going to want to go and select Classic, because that is obviously the client that we are playing on. So what you're looking at right now is the baseline screen for Warcraft Logs Classic. The things you're going to see here on the front page, for the most part, we'll get into later, but this stuff doesn't matter for right now. The main thing that matters for you is this search bar right here. The search bar allows you to search a player, a guild, or a realm. So for example, if I wanted to search our realm Grobulus, I could search Grobulus, pull this up, boom, this is all the information for Grobulus right here. And what this shows is, just kind of like the leaderboard type shit. So there's Final Boss, Head of Progress, Final Boss Speed. Oh, we need work. I blame, who do I blame? Let's blame Angus. It's just pick a random person. So what we want to do then is we want to go and actually take a look at Final Boss specifically. And when we search Final Boss specifically, this pulls up all of our logs that are being done. So we've got logs for typo group, got logs for Frex group, We got logs for Kurthos' group, which God only knows why NoFap decided to claim it was on a Friday, and just call it MC Ani. Here's a better one that was logged by Funky. And then here's another one for Typo. And basically these are the raid days that these were done. So if we want to take a look, for example, at the raid that was done yesterday in the Typo group for Molten Core and Ani, we would click on this. That's going to take us to the base screen for all the encounters and all the trash that happened in that Molten Core and in Onyxia right here. So the screen we're looking at right now shows us all the bosses, and if we want to get into one of these bosses and look at everything that happened, let's start with Lucifron, let's say. So here's Lucifron, and there's a lot of data here that this screen immediately hits you with. Do not be afraid of all this data. It is your friend. You just need to be able to look at it and interpret it accordingly. So what it's showing you here is a full-scale summary of everything that happened in the raid for damage done, damage taken, healing done, that sort of thing. This really doesn't matter as a screen. You're not really worried about this. What you're really worried about are these tabs right here. Damage done, damage taken, healing, threat is not functioning properly in WarcraftLogs right now. Buffs also somewhat not functioning properly in WarcraftLogs right now. We'll get into that later. Debuffs, deaths, interrupts, dispels, resource cast, that sort of thing. So this allows us to see everything that happened over the entire course of the fight. So if we want to look at damage done, for example, we can look at damage done, see exactly what you would have seen if you were in that fight looking at your details damage meter. You would see Warpath on the top there. You'd see healers down here. There's our tanks, that sort of thing. And you can filter to yourself, all this good stuff. And this is the baseline screen for what you'd see at details. So when you look at a fight and you're looking at a details damage meter, this is pretty much what you're seeing. You're seeing the absolute baseline for data. Where WarcraftLogs separates itself from any other tool, and where we get into the realistic application of simulation craft that I talked about earlier, is in the detail that it allows you to break down. So let's go to myself here, Asch, and let's click on me. Now what this shows when I click on myself and I get into a breakdown is it shows me tons of different things that happened on my damage done breakdown. It's got all the abilities I casted that did damage. It's got Shadow Bolt, Corruption, Shadow Burn. It shows the amount of damage they did. Shows the amount of times that I cast it. Average cast damage, how many times I hit. So you can see that I Shadow Bolted 13 times and I was resisted twice. Average hit, crit, you guys can read, you're smart. But there's a ton of data right here, and where this data is meaningful is from a comparison purpose, and we'll get into that here in just a little bit. So let's take a look at like damage taken. You can see all the damage that I took. Dark Rune, Impending Doom. I didn't do any healing. Buffs are not working properly, as I mentioned. So this is not accurate. Do not pay much attention to buffs right now. For example, I was fully flashed, fully consumed for this fight, but it's not reflecting those buffs properly. It's something to do with the sheer amount of buffs is what we think. We don't know that for sure. Storm, if you have any insight on that, feel free to chime in at any given time.
I know on retail with buffs specifically, buffs that you have like going into the fight sometimes don't register. Like it like parses based on combat, you know what I mean? So like if you pre-pot, for example, on retail, WarcraftLogs like doesn't acknowledge that pre-pot, right? So like it might be something to do with that as well. But yeah, I mean basically buffs are just super scuffed.
Okay, I gotcha. So that's something to keep in mind. That's a pretty big deal for keeping track of what people are, or if people are consuming, for comparison purposes, which again we'll get into later, as context is a massive part of using WarcraftLogs properly. Context in terms of what this parses mean, which we'll get into here in just a second. So another thing you can do here, besides all of this, the big ones are looking at damage done, looking at this breakdown, looking at summary for a player, so you can see their gear, because this is huge. You can see what their enchants are, so you can see the only, I don't really have that many enchants because I've been worried about auras getting pushed off, and there's really just not a whole lot of great enchants right now besides the 30 spell power. You can kind of look at their gear, what their stats are, look at their item level, which is important for comparison purposes, which again we'll get into later. And just look at what they're equipped, because that does make a massive difference for what two damage dealers are doing. So if we pull up two tabs here and we look at Johnny Biceps versus Warpath here, I'm pretty sure their gear is going to be different. Oh well, shoot, egg on my face. They both got the same gear. Uh, Bad example, but the point is you can quickly compare two gear levels and see whether or not someone is outgearing the other. And in fact, you can actually do that just by looking at their eye level in general, hovering over it and seeing that they're pretty close together in eye level. Whereas, maybe somebody else is much lower. Another thing you want to look at that's really good of all the data that's right here is the casts that are being done. And when I say cast, that means everything that they did, not just things that do damage. So that means battle shout, demoralizing shout, these sorts of things that are not going to be on the damage done tab.
For shamans on here, another good one to call out is like if you're replacing your totems or not. If a fight lasts longer than 2 minutes, a minute, whatever it is, the duration of the totem, and we check your cast and we see that you're not redropping your totems, right? Like that's an issue, and things that you can catch in your logs when you're looking at your own play.
For sure, absolutely. One other thing that you can look at here, as far as looking into the boss goes, you can actually flip this from all sources to enemies. And what that does is that indicates Lucifron's damage done and the Flamewalker Protector's damage done. And the reason this is significant is because what you can do is you can go over here to the debuffs on the boss, and you can check uptimes. So right here I can see that Curse of Shadow, 94.64% uptime. Now, I know in my head the reason that this was not 100% uptime was because he was probably waiting for the boss to run towards us. Same thing with Corruption, Curse of Elements, that sort of thing. Now, Curse of Recklessness, this is an issue. I can identify an issue right here where Lucifron did not have Curse of Recklessness up on him. And I can figure out why that might be, what happened there, and get into that at a higher level. Then other things like, Winter's Chill, which was only up for 91.57%. That's not bad in this case, but basically you can dig into the nuts and bolts. Why are those being used? You can dig into the nuts and bolts of what debuffs the boss has on Pet Growl, and figure out where there might be problems for the boss's debuffs, or their uptimes, especially if you're a class that revolves around damage over times, or some sort of debuff on the boss that you need, like if you're a mage and you need Winter's Chill or Sunders. Very important to take a look at this and be able to analyze that data, especially if something's not getting put up, like if you're a warlock and you just don't see Curse of Elements going on. That's a big deal. It's a big issue. So now we're going to transition a little bit. We're going to look through some of the other bosses here, see how some of them relate. We're not going to go through it again for each boss. We're going to go back to friendlies, right here, friendlies, enemies, right there. Just look at some of the data here, and it's pretty much the same for every boss. There's nothing super unique. You can go down to trash, take a look at some of the trash, take a look at damage on trash. Why is my damage so low on trash? I was probably doing loot or something.
Ash, quick question before you move forward with this. And the stream is a bit out of sync, so my questions might be a bit out of sync.
That's fine.
That debuffs chart you just went over shows overall all debuffs, all effects. Is there a way to see that per player? For instance, how to see the uptime of one player's Sunder armor when they put it up, that sort of thing, as opposed to the whole raid. Could you show how to get to that screen?
Sure, I can do that. So what you're going to want to do is when you go to, let's do not a trash fight just for argument's sake here. Let's do Shazra, okay? So you're going to want to go to enemies, filter to debuffs, and here we've got Shazra's debuffs that were put up. And let's say we want to take a look at Sunder Armor here. So let's take a look at Sunder Armor. Shazra, Typo put up all 5 Sunder Armors here. And you can see that by who cast them. So if we want to do the same thing with, say, Curse of Shadow, we click on Shazra here because that's who it was cast on. Guess what was on Curse of Shadow? He put it up here. It's So we put it up in the fight, and we'll get into this timeline stuff here in a minute. But I want to come back to that after we've talked about a more basic understanding of all this information. So that's a good question, great question. Any of this stuff that's on here, you can click into and you can drill down in and figure out more information. Like right here, you can look at this. You can see that it fell off here, only at 59.62%. You can look into it. Boom, there you go. Monger was on Winter's Chill duty. Corruptions, Shazra. You can see that all 4 Warlocks were using corruptions. Pickham's only used 2. The other Warlocks used 3. Here's their general uptimes for corruption. You can dig into that, and see who's having issues. So, I don't know what was going on there. I let it fall off for a second. I might have been casting a Shadow Bolt or something. So, that's how you can dig into that. And you can do that with literally anything that you see on here. You can drill down in, let's say I just want to click Mystical, for example. Drill down into Mysticals. You can see on the summary page, if you don't want to go back and dig into specific things, some more basic information like damage taken by ability, damage done by ability, blah, blah, blah. So, what do you do with all this data? How do you parse it? How do you make sense of it? Etc. What's good, what's bad, what's meaningful, what's not. That's where you actually have to use your brain when you're using this tool. And that's where we get into the more intermediate overview side of Warcraft logs and how to meaningfully use any of this data. Because it's one thing to look at Magmadar normal and say, okay, Asch had a 99th percentile parse on there. He did a bunch of Shadow Bolts, whatever, blah, blah, blah. You have to be able to figure out why am I doing more damage than guess what here? What happened? So, for example, just hovering over it, my Shadow Bolts did 35.2k. His Shadow Bolts only did 28.4k. But he did a little bit more damage on Corruption. So let's dig into here. Let's take a look at our casts. I did 20 casts of Shadow Bolt. My average hit was 1.8k. I only hit 17 of them. Let's take a look at guess what here. Guess what? Hit 17 of his 18 Shadow Bolts, so he had 2 more hits than I did, but he had 2 full less casts than I did. His average hit was 1.7k. So the reason that he's lower than DPS than me on this fight is because he missed 2 full Shadow Bolts. We can drill down and figure out why did he miss those Shadow Bolts, and the way that we can do that is we can look at the timeline. We're going to come back to the timeline, though, because there's a lot of really cool stuff in there that I want to show you guys on how to break that down. But right there, easy peasy, lemon squeezy, we figured out why I did more DPS than guess what in this situation. And that's not to say guess what did bad. He's got a 95 percentile parse. And we're going to talk about what that means right now as to what I mean when I say percentile parse. So what WarcraftLogs does when it takes your character and looks at your DPS for a given fight is it assigns it a percentile parse against everyone else in the world that has uploaded logs to WarcraftLogs. So if we go to, just any fight at all, it's going to parse you. It's going to take a look at how well you did and compare it against every other person in the world. And that's significant. And the reason it's significant is because it allows you to get a better understanding of how you are stacking up against everyone else in the world, how you're performing on average, and if you need to be theoretically doing more DPS based on what's going on with you, what's going on with your gear, that sort of thing. And the gear that I just mentioned is important because there is a eye level percentage right here. And what that means is that WarcraftLogs automatically takes a look at your bracket for your eye level and compares it to every other person of your class that has uploaded a log to WarcraftLogs and says, okay, yes, on this fight, Rageface is 84%. Against all other warriors, he is in the 84th percentile, with the higher percentile obviously being better. But if we look at his item level in comparison to all other warriors, in the 58 to 60 eye level bracket for DPS warriors, which is a total of 7,165 parses, Rage Face actually gains 2 full percentiles, meaning that his parse, on average, is better when weighed against other warriors in his item level bracket. So he is doing 2% better than other warriors when filtered to his item level bracket. Conversely, if we look at, let's say, Sahadin here, right here, and this isn't to call anybody out. WarcraftLogs is not a EPing tool. A lot of people try to use it as a dick wagging tool. That's not what it's for. It is intended to make your play better and show data. That is it. Yes, it does have, all stars and progress rankings and stuff, but that's not what it's for. That's not what it's for. It's to make your play better. It's to optimize. So Sahadin, on the other hand, parsed 83rd on this fight for rogues. However, when we look at his eye level, he only did 77%, meaning that based on his eye level, he is 6% below average for rogues in his eye level bracket. So there's room for optimization there. And you can dig into that and figure out why that is. Sometimes it's as easy as one person just casting more Shadow Bolts than the other person. Other times, it's more complicated. Storm, do you have something you're going to say?
It's funky. It's not average. Average would be 50%. You're just saying he's under. Basically, if you look at the way to say it is like if you look at his percentile, like just his percentile, right? But then you look at the eye level percentile. If his eye level percentile is lower than his just normal percentile, that means he's literally underperforming for the gear he has in comparison to other people of the same gear.
That's right.
So how does it exactly track? So let's say, like, I know for DPS it makes sense, right? Like, okay, the bigger the number, and it just tracks that with everything else that exists. But how does that work with like healers or tanks? Like, how does parses work for those type of roles?
You should never look at parses for healers and tanks per se. Like, they are helpful, but
Yeah, but
it's
so the biggest issue right now is that WarcraftLogs is not appropriately tracking who is a tank and who isn't. It's actually not clear how it's deciding who is flagged as protection spec and who is not. It's an absolute mystery right now as to how it's flagging.
I think I figured that out actually, Ash. I tested it in my raid. So it actually, so this is nothing like retail, but I think how it's labeling your spec is by the amount of spells you cast. It looks at the spell. So like for me, example, I literally tested it because I went on to a fight and all I did was cast Lightning Bolt, no heals, and it put me as Ellie. Even though I am literally 0-5-48 or whatever. Like I am full fucking resto. It put me as Ellie because I cast so many Lightning Bolts. So I think how it's working for that is it just labels you depending on what spells you cast. So if you're a Fury Warrior, or if you're a tank, right, and you're casting a bunch of, I don't know, whatever fucking button you have for Fury, it's going to label you as Fury.
Okay. I don't know. Maybe for warriors, that 100% makes sense because I have seen that for some healers being labeled as Ellie if they cast too many lightning bolts. For tanks, I really don't know.
For tanks, it's taunt and revenge. Like 99% sure.
Yeah, it's like would it be Thunder Armor as well? Or
Nope.
is it just Thunder?
Doesn't care about Thunder. I tried yesterday, and yeah, it flagged me as a tank. Everyone I used revenge frequently, and I tried just randomly taunting, see if that would do it. So it's one of those two.
So I'm not going to talk too much about healers because healer logs, for lack of a better way to say this, don't really matter. They do, but they don't. They are not as important as DPS logs, purely because... Go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say a healer log really only matters if someone's consistently gray parsing. That is the issue. If you're blue parsing, you're green parsing, you're orange parsing, that could just be your assignment. Like straight up, that could literally just be your assignment, or you're sniping, which is bad. But the only time numbers, the percentile really becomes an issue with healers if you're consistently gray parsing, because that means you either have no clue what you're doing, you're AFK, Like it's that basically the only time heal parses matter is when you're doing very bad.
The
Anything
converse of
beyond
that is true though, because if you like, so this is something that healers should watch out for. If you have been assigned and you are legendary parsing, it won't matter now because we outgear MC. But the point is, you're supposed to be assigned to that target. So if you're legendary parsing, that means you're not healing your assigned target. You know, you're healing other things.
Yeah,
You're root healing.
When
So you
people
should be
brag
conscious
about-
of people.
Yeah, when people are bragging about high parses as a healer, it's generally a bad sign. Like it means you're ignoring your assignments, you're sniping people. Like a high healer parse is not something to really be proud of. The only situation a high healer parse is to be proud of is when we're massively underhealing the content. Then that fuck yeah, that's cool. You literally are carrying a raid on your back, like underhealing. That's good. You should high parse then. But outside of that situation, a high healer parse is generally not a good thing.
So, 100% true. What you do want to look for when you get into healer logs is you want to do what we did for DPS as well. You want to look at what they're casting. You want to look at their overheal percentage. You know, see if somebody's just like massively overhealing, and that could be due to external factors like somebody sniping, maybe their raid assignments. There's plenty of stuff you can dig into for healing. You just have to take it with much more of a grain of salt as to, you know, what matters versus what doesn't, as compared to DPS where you have a, you know, straightforward goal of do the most damage. So before we get into some of the more complex timelines and event sort of things, I'm going to go over real quick how to look at rankings for this.
Before you move on, Ash, I just want to mention for healer logs, for anyone who does want to analyze healer logs, it's the things you want to be looking at on healer logs. Logs are very important for healers, by the way. We're not saying like logs are fucking useless for healers. It's the rankings that are kind of useless. But you like something I've been looking at for healers, for example, is mana pots. Who's using mana pots? You can go into casts. Like I think Ash was talking about casts earlier. You can go into casts. You can click the fucking mana pot, and I can see how many you used. I can see what fight you used. I can see when you used it. I can see your totem up times if you're a shaman. Like logs are very important for a healer. It's just not the actual HPS is the important part. It's
Priest
all
power infusion casting is something we really want to get on top of, especially
Yeah.
in trash.
So I looked at power infusion, for example. I think Wispa was the one, or someone asked me to, and I was going over it. Maybe it was Cadeus, and I was going over it, and like you literally have priests. By the way, you guys might want to deal with this. You have priests spec'd into power infusion using one power infusion in an entire raid night.
Yeah, we know.
Like it's logs are very helpful for healers. It's just the actual HPS value is not that important unless they're consistently gray parsing. All right, sorry, go ahead, Ash.
No, you're fine. It's important to note that, and if you're watching the stream, looking at my screen, you can see the restore mana, demonic runes, that sort of thing, on their casts, which will work independently outside of the buffs or anything like that. So you actually can see who is directly consuming properly, and if you were paying attention, you can see that you can quickly shift between people here and easily see who's doing what, just at a glance. So what I want to go over next is...
Wait, quick question about eye level parses before we move on. The parses on the very left, let's say it says 84%. That means that that person, if it's DPS more than 84% of similar spec.
The world.
84th percentile.
Their class and spec, yeah.
When you hover over it and it says a percentage for, let's say, 58, 60 eye level, there's a percentage there as well. Is that a ranking purely within other people within that eye level range? Is that what it's showing?
It gives you a bracket of IM level that you're inside of, 50, 60, 60.
And it would be excluding other players of higher or lower eye levels in that
Yes.
That's correct.
case. Okay.
I would be really like the eye level parsing in Classic isn't nearly as relevant as it is in retail, right? Like the gap in item level in this game versus retail, like it's not necessarily as significant. And the other thing is like the way gearing works in Classic is like you could have a BIS item with like a super low item level, right? So item level doesn't really translate the same way in Classic as it does in retail, because for the most part of retail, like higher item level equals better piece, but like there's items like that are going to be BIS for a long time for some classes that are like 5-10 points of item level lower than something else. So
that's going to come into our conversation that we're going to have here toward pretty much at the very end, which is context and understanding context, because that is the number one most difficult thing about using Warcraft logs properly. is understanding context. So we'll circle back to that and discuss that a little bit more in depth, and I'll give you guys some real world application situations as to some of that context and why and how it matters, why it matters, and show it literally in real time in differences between parses just due to factors that some raiders just can't control. So if you want to look at rankings, and this is really what you're going to want to look at on a grand overview scale to quickly identify, maybe who are having some problems within your class. If you're not even looking at just a specific raid night, if you're just looking on an overview scale, okay, who really needs some help? Go to rankings. I always just do include private logs, and this is going to show you everything that you need in regards to where everyone is performing at a best parse level. And what that means when I say best parse level is if we go to Knives, for example, and we look at Knives' personal breakdown, I'm not looking at Knives' 37% median history on Ragnaros. That doesn't matter. The guy had a bad parse. Okay, everybody has bad parses. Everybody has something go wrong. I had a death on Gehennas this week, and I put up an 8 percentile parse. That doesn't matter here because that log is an anomaly. That goes into your median performing average, but what we want to talk about is the best performing average. And what that means is that it takes your best history, the best log that you've done, good RNG, the world is on your side for this log basically. Gives you a percentile ranking for that best history, and then it averages it. Okay? So that means you don't have any excuses. There's no, oh, I had a bad week. There's no, oh, I just, whatever. There's zero excuses. You are at your best, 100% gravy. This is you. So what you can do when you look at this tool, and you can do the same thing about the item level here, is if you use by bracket over here to more closely filter it to item level. And this is significant in Classic. Again, Storm is 100% correct, but we'll get into the context conversation. But if you look here closely, especially at the Hunters, when you filter by item level, you can see some pretty wild jumps happening. And that's something that you do sort of need to pay a little bit of attention to, since if somebody's dropping 25 points when you filter to their item level, that means they're severely underperforming for the gear that they have. Or maybe there's a context situation, and the gear that they have just isn't any good, and they got boosted up and just didn't get the right items. But again, we'll come back to that on context. So let's look at I don't want to say a problem, but let's look at somebody that's having a rough time. So let's look at Headcrab, Hemama. Let's look at Hemama. Okay, Hemama's got a 33.5% average best parse. 25, 48, 14, 42, 74. This is rough. This is pretty rough. So we want to dig into this here and figure out what happened. So for starters, they've only got one recorded kill on each of these bosses. So it's pretty tough to put much stock into these best history because, as we just discussed, they don't have enough kills that some of these could be bad. They could have just gotten really unlucky. Now, when it's this spread across the board for this level, this consistency, that does indicate that there's some consistency there, and you can actually dig into that. But let's try to find somebody here that's having a rougher time that has maybe a few more logs. I'm not trying to pick on anybody here. It's just doing some examples here. So Dreamy here is a good example. I would say Dreamy probably needs some help from me, or from Otto or Zash or Husk to dig in and figure out what's going wrong, how we can help, because they've got 3 to 4 kills here on record, and they are, for lack of a better word, underperforming. So that's where we would want to dig in and figure out, how can we help this person get them more up to speed, because across the board they seem to be having issues. And the target that I want people to hit, and this isn't going to be consistent, everybody's going to have their own opinion and their own sort of idea, but the target that I think everybody should hit is everybody should shoot for a 75% best performing average. And I think that's perfectly achievable at our world rank. All that means is that across the board, you got your rank to 75%. So, Ukiyo-e, here's a good example. if he gets his rag parse up, gets a good parse on rag next week, this will jump up to 75%, because that's what's holding him back right now. And you can additionally filter these here to see who's performing the best on a given fight. So you don't just have to look at someone's average. You can say, okay, all right, Egghead's doing pretty well here, but how's he doing on, you know, oh, it looks like he's really having trouble on Major Demo Executus. So maybe I need to look at that fight for him, and maybe we need to discuss some boss-specific tips or see what's going wrong with this parse so that I can get him up to speed and bring his average parse level up to what it should be.
Hey, real quick, Ash.
Yeah.
On the screen you're looking at right here, how do you filter for item level?
So to filter for item level, you're going to want to go over here to Buy Bracket and click on that. And when you click on that, it will filter everyone to by item level. And that resorts the list and resorts their personal average. So you can see I actually have a rank 1 in the world when you filter by item level for Major Demo Executives. So anyway, somebody was going to ask a question?
Yeah, so is this everyone that was a part of Typo's raid, or is this everyone that's in the guild?
This is
overall?
everyone that is in the guild overall for Final Boss.
Yeah. So can you link that page for me?
Well,
so I can just have that.
Yeah, what I want to do here is show you how to get to it again. I'll show you how to
Yeah.
get to it again one more time.
I
here.
missed that.
No, you're fine.
Yo,
You're fine.
Ash, I was gonna say we could just put the Final Boss link. Like we should paste it somewhere in Discord. Like pin it somewhere.
We will. The goal here is to get you guys, not you specifically, Funky. I know you're comfortable. The goal is to get everybody else that maybe hasn't used this tool comfortable using this tool, comfortable going into this tool, and digging in, and not just clicking a link. I want you guys to root around in here. Like there's all kinds of stuff you can get into here. You can look at attendance. I mean, this thing is deep. It's deep. So Voidroy, to get to this page, let's go ahead and just type in. I don't think there's anything in my history, but you just can't risk it these days. What?
Yeah, the one thing with logs that I think a lot of people I don't want you guys to get like
Ash, stop talking.
One thing, am I talking? One thing about logs that you don't want to get swayed by is just the percentile, because logs are so much more than just the percentile. You can literally look at everything in a raid. It is a little lackluster right now with the buffs, but eventually, hopefully, it gets updated properly, and you will be able to see every single consumable usage. There's so much you can do with logs. Any little tool you want to know about how someone's performing in raid, you can find it out on logs. Are they dispelling? Are they like literally anything?
So to get back on track to what Voidray asked here, before we get into the breakdown of the timing and some of the more intermediate things you can do with logs, we're gonna look at how I got to that screen. So I went to Classic here when I pulled up the main WarcraftLogs site, and I searched Final Boss, our guild in here, which auto-completed us here to Final Boss. So from here, if I want to look at all of our rankings across the board, I'm going to click this right here. And this will take me to the screen that I was in, reviewing everyone in the entire guild that has ever put up a log. Now, we can do the same thing from an individual report perspective. So if you go into Typo's raid from last night, for example, we can click rankings here. And this will show us the same data breakdown, except for just the individual raid itself. So, you can see that Gehenna's Sparse I was talking about, where I got absolutely boned. Some of this other stuff that happened. And actually look at it on a raid-to-raid basis. So you can see tonight, if we filtered out, guess what had our best Lucifron? Which this doesn't necessarily mean that he did the best damage in the raid. What this means is that within the context of his class, he performed well. So you can see he's actually beneath 2 hunters, a rogue, 4 warriors. What this parse means, and I don't think I touched on this earlier, is that it doesn't mean that he's the best DPS in the raid. It means he did his job as his class at XYZ level. And in this case, he did it at the 99th percentile level, which is, anything above 95% means you're doing fantastic. It's literally called legendary tier of parsing. So right now I want to move on to one of the more detailed aspects of logs, which is getting into the actual timing of different things and looking at when things were cast, when things were done, with some of this right here. So what we're looking at here is tables, which is the base screen that I've been showing you guys this entire time. Timelines and events are now what I want to show you guys. So timelines let you see everything that was done right here. I don't actually use this too much. You can use it to find out certain specific information. Like one thing that I use it for a lot of times is I will use it to determine if someone is SM Ruin or not. Because I'll look for, 2 shadow bolts that might have happened at the same time. That's a shadow vulnerability resist. So let's see, Anarctic, shadow vulnerability. Anyway, so the point is you can see when everybody cast something, what their global cooldown was, and you can compare it in real time against the clock ticking for the raid. And you can do the same thing and break it down further by cast. You can filter to typo. You can see just typo specifically, exactly when he did absolutely everything in the fight, how he did it, blah blah blah. Super fantastic. You can dig into this however much you want. You can even do it to enemies. Look at when enemies cast things. Look at debuffs on enemies, when they took debuffs, when they didn't. This is your timelines.
So the timeline frame, when I click on it, says it's under construction. Like, no, I'm on the same window as you are essentially, but I'm getting not the box. I don't know what's up with that.
You may just need to refresh it.
Yeah.
So the next thing we're going to move into is the actual event page, which is similar to the timeline page, but it can be a little bit better if you have a understanding of, maybe when somebody died or something, and you want to look at the context surrounding what happened. So if we go to summary, it's going to open up by showing us everything that happened at the start of the fight along with a timestamp. And that timestamp is exactly when something happened. And you could actually see cool stuff like batching and action here, where you can see multiple things happen on the same batch, basically. And so, like, for example, something I was doing today with Helsing on Ragnaros was he died due to a bad blink that he did. And I knew, based on timelines, that Helsing died on Ragnaros at about the 58-second mark. The 1 minute mark specifically, there's where he died from a Ragnaros melee attack. So what I decided to do was I tried to figure out, okay, how did Helsing get in melee range for Ragnaros to Falcon Punch him? What happened that went so wrong on that? And so what you can do there is you can go into events for the timeline, and we can see Helsing dies 1 minute, 1 second. And we go to summary, and when we go to summary, what we're going to do is we're going to find that period of time. And we're going to see exactly in order what led up to that happening, how that happened, down to the last detail for everyone in the entire raid. And what I'm going to show you next is really going to blow your mind for how deep this thing gets. So, oh shoot, we got to go back actually. Oops, didn't mean to hit that key. So, Helsing, last thing he does is he frostbolts Ragnaros. Blah 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 blah. You can see what absolutely everybody is doing. We're looking for Helsing specifically for his cast, and we can filter this to just so Helsing. But in this case, we want to look at the context to see maybe if he was hit by a lava burst, which happened at the 57-second mark. Helsing, though, blinks a second and a half later, which could have been from a knockup, but it didn't show him getting hit. So Helsing blinks, and when he blinks, the next time we're going to see Helsing pop up is he's in the lava. So he's in the lava, and then what happens to Helsing? Well, on the next page, 2 seconds later, which I don't know why I have to scroll up here, we're going to see at the 101 second mark that Helsing dies from Magnus' melee. So we can plot that out on a timeline against absolutely everything that happened. Now, if this looks pretty obtuse to find all this data, that's because it is a little obtuse. What I'm going to show you next is the replay function. The replay function actually shows you everything in the raid in full time, or in real time. Here's everyone in the raid. Here's the categories for what they did. Here's raid frames. Players, pets, bosses, NPCs, the speed of the playback. Let's do it 2 times for lulz. And we're going to play this sucker. And watch what happens. What we've got here is absolutely everyone in the raid shown in real time as they move around. So let's watch all Helsing right here. Let's see what happens when we get to about the 49-second mark. Okay? He's on his own here. He's minding his own business. Let's slow this sucker down, actually. Oh, we just missed it. There's Helsing. He blinks forward. Runs out of the... Boom. He's dead. We can watch that happen from a positioning standpoint in real time, down to the exact second that it happened. And if we look at damage done, we can look at all of this happening in real time as well. So we can see the damage meters literally as they happen.
Hey, Ash, do you know about queries or queries? Or I don't know how to say the word on this
Queries?
replay.
Yeah, I don't really use them that much, but I do know of them. Usually
Yeah,
when
'cause,
I'm
like-
targeting something.
Yeah, you could do a query, for example, on like right there. You click it on the bottom right, you go add all that shit, and you could set one to be like track all of fucking like that's how I showed typos, buffs, gained, and lost. You could do one for
Yeah.
I forget the mage you were just talking about there. You could put one for all his casts, for example, and you would get a little fucking thing to track every single one of his casts. So if you wanted to see in live time what he was doing the entire fight, you could set that up and watch it in live time.
For sure. I mean, the critical thing here to stress is that there is so much you can do with this as a tool that none of us will ever even fully be able to dig into what all can be done with this, because there's just no limit to the amount of data you can pull out and minute improvements that you can look at for what you did. So, like let's say I wanted to look at my timeline of casts for Asch on Ragnaros. I want to look at my timeline. I want to see if I had any downtime when I cast different spells. So we're going to go through here. We're going to see, why did I cast Corruption twice? Why did I do this? This is either a mistake on my part, or potentially, let's take a look, 17 seconds, 18.5 seconds. Let's take a look at my buffs. Power Infusion. That's why I did it. I double-checked my Power Infusion, and I wanted to go ahead and refresh Corruption to get the absolute longest duration out of it. It was technically a bad play for me to refresh Corruption there, but when I double-checked, I wanted to hit it before it ran out. That's why I did that. Is that optimal play? No. That is not optimal play. I wasted a global. But I can figure all that information out right here. Now, is that game breaking for how I play my class? What I do on a day-to-day basis, how I live my life? Am I going to go to bed tonight and lay awake thinking, holy fuck, I wasted a global on Corruption? No, that's not what you're going to do. But, or at least that's not what I'm going to do. If you want to lay awake and be super concerned about the fact that I wasted a cooldown on Corruption, do that. Big deal. Storm's going to talk about that, the how to upload here at the end. So, sorry, I haven't been watching the chat, so I have no idea when you said that. So the last thing we're really going to talk about, unless Storm has anything else that you want to add, before I kind of move into the last topic, which is context for this.
No, man, you're good. You're touching on everything.
Okay. So the last thing I want to talk about is context. And context is very important. So what's over here is, if you click on this, it shows you all the bosses. It shows you progress, rankings, statistics, that sort of thing. Let's take a look at rankings for Molten Core. Okay. And this is going to show us the best players, best guilds in the world at a rank 1 level for these fights. So, this is the highest ranked player in the game doing the absolute best on DPS and at playing their class. Ironically, a Feral Druid and a Rep Paladin are second and third respectively, but that doesn't mean they're top DPS on fights. That just means within their class they're doing really well. So,
That's fun.
yeah, no, right? So, what we can look at here at the top, or we can filter by item level. We can filter by specific class. So let's say I want to look at Warlocks only for these. You can do that. So I can look at Lucifron, dig into, let's say, this guy's log, and figure out if he did anything different than I did. You can get really far into that to compare yourself maybe against some other top parses. But, some people like filtering the United States. Some people it doesn't matter. They keep all regions. You can filter to boss. So let's say we want to look at Ragnaros, for example. Or, right here, you can filter to speed, which is one that I personally like to use for speed, because this indicates raid-wide damage being high on the overall. So this is where context becomes very, very important. So if we look at Magmadar for Bipolar's kill, they killed it in 40 seconds. Okay, so let's look at Final Bosses Magmadar for Typo Group. Well, we killed it in 1:14. That's a full 34 seconds slower than the other group killed it. So what that means is that these warriors, and Freck mentioned this in the officer meeting here, all these warriors, the reason that they're so high parsing is because every single one of them had recklessness up pretty much this entire kill. At 1:14, our guys didn't have recklessness up this one kill. Now, that doesn't excuse them from doing low DPS. That doesn't excuse anybody from low DPS. But what you'll find is that when everybody in the raid does well, everyone's DPS and everyone's performance shoots up, rockets up, absolutely does more DPS. Because you're under cooldowns, you're under the initial burst, whatever. As a fight stretches on into infinity, everyone's DPS levels out, it tapers out, things change dramatically. And that can be anything from the way that you gear. Maybe in a shorter fight, crit is more valuable. So maybe these warriors, and that's not necessarily valid or true at all. That's just purely a statement of, there could be outside differences based on just the kill times alone. So that's not to say that Warpath here, doing 84th percentile, couldn't have potentially done as much DPS as these warriors right here. He could have very well done as much DPS as those warriors right here. Heck, for all we know, he might have out DPS'd them. But the problem holding Mr. Warpath back, assuming that there is no other external factors, so if you ever get caught and you're trying to figure out what's going on, like if I were to look at this and I were to say, okay, why am I not doing as much DPS as their Warlock, which actually I think I might be beating their Warlock even with this. He's only doing 16.3k damage. Well, get out of here. I did a total of 42.1k damage. I quadrupled his damage done purely because of the length of the fight and the warriors that was going on. So when you get into this and try to compare it, you might say, okay, well, Miley here only meleeed or only heroic striked, this amount of times, whereas Warpath did them. Well, he's two-hander, so that's not an equivalent look right there, and that's something else that you need to keep in mind. There is, there's different gearing choices, so right out of the gate, you need to be able to identify why things are different and not just take things at a face value. And I apologize that I can't explain this more clearly because it's not an easy topic to get into. You have to really understand the nuances of classes, understand what the data is that you're looking at. So Sheki, for example, is also a one-handed warrior, and we can verify that in his logs, or in his summary. He's got 2 one-handers. So he's doing more melees than this guy. But the difference is this guy did more DPS because of the fight length, because of the other warriors. So those other warriors are pulling their clear time up because even though they may be doing less damage on the overall than some of the players in our raid, which actually they're doing more damage on top of that, but that's, like I said, another can of worms. What's happening is that all their DPS are doing more damage faster. They're just straight up doing more DPS. So this total number for this Warlock here at 16.3k, it doesn't matter because the warriors are pulling all that weight right here. And you're going to see this in every log. So when you look at casters, for example, what's going to happen is that here I'll give you an even better example that'll really knock your socks off. That Feral Druid that I talked about, Mr. Quanta. Well, if you look at his logs versus my logs, now you might say a Warlock, you know, pretty much all orange parses, probably going to be beating a Feral Druid, right? Not even close. 569.2 damage on Ragnaros. My best parse, 436. My absolute highest DPS parse, Sulfuron Harbinger, 580.6. His best parse on Sulfuron Harbinger, 478.6. He's not far behind me, and he's beating me on just about every other parse. Well, why is that, you might say? You know, are Feral Druids this good? Are they just that much better than Warlocks? You know, is what's going on here? Well, let's dig into one of these parses here. Let's take a look at that's a good one here. Let's take a look at Shazra. Okay, so when we click on him, it shows his parses for Shazra. Let's go to one of his rank 1 parses for Shazra. Well, what's going on here? His fight is 26 seconds. He's got warriors that are doing absolute blitz amount of damage to this guy. And he's pulling his weight himself. But because this fight's so short, he's got absolutely every single one of his cooldowns still up. Every single one of everything ready to go. And that's pulling him up. Let's take a look at my Shazra for comparison here. I'm a Warlock, so this isn't quite an even comparison, but what's different about these parses is 56 seconds, 26 seconds. That's a full 30 seconds faster that these guys did this raid. And what happens when this fight is that much faster is every single one of their warriors under rec, their parses go up. They do a better job. So what needs to happen is you don't want to look into these warriors here if you're a warrior class leader. I'm fixating on warriors here because they're an important part of every fight right now. You don't want to look into these warriors and say, you know, okay, what's going on with their casts? Blah blah blah. You know, are they not doing right? Are they not doing their job right? It's more complicated than just looking at it on a 1-to-1 scale of, you know, this warrior isn't using enough heroic strikes, or, you know, this warrior isn't doing enough damage per cast with his melee. You know, 722.5 per melee. This warrior's doing, let's get damage done. You know, this warrior's doing 260 points. Well, he's Fury, so that's different again. But the point is, there's context to these that needs to be understood. And as Storm touched on earlier, there's gear in this context that needs to be understood. You know, what gear do these people have? What's going on? It's not as simple as just looking at it and saying, this guy didn't cast enough Shadow Bolts. You have to really figure out what's going on. And the best way to do that, if you absolutely want to compare against the top end parse, is not to look at the absolute highest parse that you can find. Like, so let's say I want to go to rankings on Shazra. It's a good fight because it's very straightforward, blah, blah, blah. And let's say I want to dig into a rogue parse for DPS. Well, instead of starting with our rank 1 parse, which could have all sorts of shenanigans going on, let's try to get to a more realistic parse. Let's go to number 99 here. You know, and let's see what's happening in a number 99 parse versus a number 1 parse. And this is going to happen less with melee than it is with casters. With casters especially, and I'll show you here real quick for casters what I'm talking about. So let's go to Ragnaros. Let's go to Warlock. Let's go to Ape here. Diggins he just got kind of lucky, but let's go to Ape here. So Ape, you might be saying, man, he's just absolutely blowing it out of the water. He's killing it. You know, he's doing everything he needs to be doing. Well, if we dig into him, we take a look at his buffs, he got 3 power infusions. 3 power infusions being rotated on him. And since buffs are actually working, which buffs don't always work, but they always do for power infusion for the most part is what I've seen, he also went back and got Songflower. We have not had Songflower on any of our rag kills. So when you look at a log like this, what you need to immediately identify is this is basically the equivalent of padding. This is somebody that's being given unrealistic advantages over the vast majority of the raiding community. This is somebody that set out to purposely rank on this fight. It has nothing to do with progress, has nothing to do with execution. It purely has to do with him trying to push a really high parse. So when you see something like this, and it's going to be harder and harder to identify in Classic, but you can even go into it and look at his summary. You know, the guy's got Toep, the guy's got Robe of the Void, Chocolate Firelord, Nemesis Skullcap. Everything that's dropped for their raid has basically been thrown at this guy. And you can compare this with the other Warlocks in his raid as to, you know, what their gear looks like. You know, this guy's got nothing. The other guy's gotten so much gear. So you have to be able to identify those outliers, and one way you can do that is with eye level in some cases. It depends, again, like Storm said, on individual pieces like weapons, that sort of thing. But that's one way to help narrow in on something that might be out of line. Another way, like I showed you with this guy's buffs, is to look at crazy stuff. Like, does he have power infusion? Does he have full world buffs? You know, what's going on under the hood besides just a straightforward, this is damage done. And that's what makes this tool so exceptional for figuring out how things are done. And you can look at this from an execution point of view too. You know, if you're melee or having trouble dying on rag, for example, you can look at this kill. You can speed it up. You can say, all right, what are these melee doing? What is this tank doing to avoid all of them dying? You know, when are they jumping out? When are they going back in? How is this functioning as
And
a
you can
raid?
even click on an individual person, and see their cast bar.
Yep. So you can see, since I clicked on the warrior tank here, you can look at all of his, you know, general buffs for what he's using, for what it'll track. You can look at what he's using pretty much in order. I mean, everything that this guy does, you can 100% see in order. So let's take a look at our Dr. Pad Warlock friend here. You can see it shows his full consumes, shows him casting Shadow Bolt, shows what his next cast is lined up. He's just having a good time spamming away. Throws in a Shadow Burn there, fight's over. So, super cool tool, super crazy stuff you can do with this. I highly encourage you all to take the time. You know, maybe you're at work, maybe there's a slow time. You know, you're dicking around on your phone. Dig into here and figure out what you can do. Storm's going to go over how to log if you want to do that, but before we do that, I want to kind of fill out the floor here. Any questions about anything I've gone over? I know it was a lot to cover in such a short time frame, but there's just so much to hit on that I unfortunately can't get too deep into any one topic. Otherwise, we'd be here for hours.
Yeah, and if for anyone watching the stream or watching this later or whatever, if you have any questions about logs, go to me, Storm, or Ash. Like, I'm pretty sure the three of us can answer anything you have about it. Anything healer related, I can talk to you. Anything damage, you should probably talk to Ash.
All right, so if everybody is cool, like no questions, I can quickly go over how to upload. Like it's really straightforward. They've done a good job making it convenient. Basically, the first thing you're gonna need to do is register for an account on the WarcraftLogs website. And they also have Battle.net integration, which actually I don't know if that works with Classic or not, but you can integrate like your actual account and everything too. So once you have your account created, there's like a menu when you click like your profile, And at the bottom of that menu, it's going to have an option that says Join Guild. You click that, and you need to paste in a code which the person who manages the Warcraft logs page for the guild can give you. That's Funky. So you just paste that code in there, and then basically, for lack of a better term, sends an application to Funky, and Funky approves or denies the person that's requesting access. Once Funky grants you access, what that means is you can directly upload logs to the guild's Warcraft logs page, and they will show up on that calendar that Ash was going over earlier. To upload, like, there's a few different ways, but they all start with getting the Warcraft logs client. So I'm going to paste a link into the council chat Discord right now where you can grab the client. So I'll do that really quick.
Actually, here, I'll put... You actually don't need the code. I can just give you this link that auto grants you access. I'll post that. I'll put the code too if you want it, but you can just click this link.
All right. So, and then once you got the client, what you do is you open up the client, and you'll have to log in to your Warcraft logs account first thing, and then there's like a home page, and it's going to say a few things. It's going to say upload a live log or split a log. So basically, what happens is when you're playing WoW and you want to log something, you type in in-game /combat log, and that turns on logging to a folder within your World of Warcraft folder on your computer, and it creates a text document called combat log. So that's how Warcraft logs gets all the data. If you do what's called a live log, it'll ask you to basically name the log, like name the report, pick the guild you want to add it to, and then it will just immediately, every time combat ends, add something to that report. So that's why, like, if we're doing MC and it's being live logged, every time we kill a boss, like, the page will update with it. The other way to do it, and you still do the same thing, you still start your combat logging in-game with the /combat log command. You can, instead of doing a live log, upload the actual combat log text file in the Warcraft logs client at the end of the night as well. I've just always prefer live logging because I personally use the logs like during the raid to analyze things that are going on, but it's kind of up to your preference. The one thing to be aware of, and this is how that third option, which is called split a log, comes into play, is the Warcraft log, combat log text file that gets created when you do /combat log does not like go away or clean itself up or anything ever manually. So you could, in theory, have this combat log file in there that contains like months and months and months worth of raids, which doesn't really do anything for anybody if you want to upload specific data. Like if you're choosing to upload at the end of a raid instead of live logging, you're going to want to make sure that you're deleting that file basically every week once you've uploaded the logs, so you don't have this log file that's going to have, hundreds of fights in it. If you ever forget to do that, there is that function called split a log. What that does is when you hit that, you upload the combat log file, and it goes through everything, and then it spits out a list of basically all the encounters that are in there, and you can handpick what you want to upload. So there is a way around it, but I would just recommend live logging, and primarily live logging, and deleting your combat log file pretty regularly as well. The only other piece to this that you need to do, and it's just a one-time thing, is in the game you need to have advanced combat logging on, which is a flag. Like if you go to your menu, you go to systems and you go to network. They're the third checkbox in the network menu, advanced combat logging. You just turn that on. You do that once and you're set. The only other thing I can think of is like once you do your /combat log command, it's going to stay on forever while you're logged into that session. Unless you type /combat log again, it will stop logging. Or if you log out, it will stop logging. So important to remember that if you're live logging and you finish raid and then you go run a bunch of dungeons or something, all of the data is going to get thrown into that same log file on the page, which really, like, it's not that big of a deal, doesn't matter, but just a heads up. And conversely, if you're mid raid and you DC or you need to log out for some reason, make sure you remember to turn combat logging back on when you log back in, or you will not be logging anymore. But it's super user friendly. Like literally, when I show up to raid, I open the client, I hit live log, pick final boss as my guild, type the name of the report that I want the name to be, do /combat log in game, and I forget about it till the end of the night. Then I turn off the client, and the logs are automatically uploaded. Like it's super clean.
Question.
Yeah.
Will it merge logs if multiple people are logging for that night?
No, it will create multiple instances of the same report of logs. So like you don't necessarily want 10 people in one raid logging. Like it's redundant. First of all, second of all, it's going to fill up the calendar. Like we can go in after the fact and delete logs off the page if we want, but like I don't know, you don't necessarily need more than like a couple people, as like a failsafe in each raid. Just make sure that there's more than one, and probably less than 4 or 5 would be like as a kind of a base layer or a base level of where to start at.
It would be good if 2 or 3 people log, but the same person can upload it every time. And if something goes wrong with that main uploader, then one of the backups can upload, because things do go wrong and you don't want to lose the whole month's log.
Exactly. And the other thing is like, a good example, I'm on vacation this week, so I won't be raiding with my normal group. And if nobody else in my group ever logs, like then we're missing a week. So you want to have multiple people in the group that are logging on a regular basis, because you want it to be a habit, and log files can become corrupt, and like there's a whole bunch of different things that can happen. So having 2, 3 people always logging is never a bad thing.
Any other general questions about this, or any questions about maybe why this is important, just in case
I
you
just
guys are
want
immediately clear?
to clarify. When you're doing live logging, you still have to type combat logging game, right?
Yeah, you have to do /combat log to start logging, regardless of any time you're anything. But what live logging does is every time you enter combat with anything, whether it's trash or a boss, as soon as you drop combat, it uploads the data from that specific fight you just had to the log file on the website, and you can see it in real time.
Oh, okay. Sweet.
Yeah, so like if we're an MC, we kill Lucifer, we drop combat, within 10 seconds of Lucifer being dead, all of the log data will be in the report on WarcraftLogs.
And then I'm guessing throughout the evening, it'll just update that particular parse.
That report itself. Like once the report started,
Yeah.
The report is the report for the night. There's actually this is something we should probably do. Is we should create a WarcraftLogs channel in Discord that only has access for officers, and there's a WarcraftLogs API bot for Discord, and you can make it so anytime somebody starts live logging to the final boss guild page, that the bot automatically pastes the link to that report in the WarcraftLogs channel. So there's always just a place where we always know, it's Wednesday night and typos group's going, and I turn on my logs, that link pops up instantly, and everybody that's in the group just knows to go there and open up that log if they want to grab really quick.
So are we clear on what to look for as a class leader when you're reviewing logs for your class, for your raid? What is a potential issue to address?
No, seems pretty straightforward.
And again, it's entirely constructive. It's not necessarily to come down on anybody. And there's always external factors. The first thing you should check for, if somebody's got a great parse like this, is, like if you're watching the stream right now, Voidroy right here is a 21 gray parse. Well, Voidroy's a tank.
It's thinking I'm Fury, which is why it's so low.
Yeah, so, right away you don't need to go to Voidroy, and, I mean, obviously you're class leader, but you know, assuming you're just a regular raider, you don't need to go to Void Ray and say, hey, what's going on? Why are you, you know, such a shitter? Well, there's external factors there that WarcraftLogs isn't telling you. Now, if we go up one and we take a look at these, you know, the first thing we want to do is check deaths. Let's make sure he didn't die. No, he didn't die. So he didn't die, and he had a 24th percentile parse. So obviously there's something going wrong here. And, you know, if we look at it from a timeline perspective, we can see a whole lot of time where he just wasn't doing anything for some reason. So, you know, huge gaps in him just not pressing any buttons. There's 8.5 seconds between two melee swings. And then we get our first cleave at 31 seconds into the fight is our first cleave. And if we filter to enemies specifically, the enemies themselves, if we take a look at deaths for the enemies, whatever. You know, you can look at when the enemies died there and see, like, you know, okay, why is he still cleaving at 31 seconds? Are all the ads still alive even, or have they died? So, you know, we can look at about 32 seconds here for Mr. Flamewaker number 1. Well, he died at 22 seconds. Okay. Flamewaker number 2, my clicks are off today. He died at about 32 seconds. So about 10 seconds apart they died. So if we go way back here to, let's just do this. If we go way back here to Mr. D's, nuts, got him. And we look at him using cleave at 31 seconds, he did not cleave those mobs when all 3 of them were alive. He only cleaved when it was basically the last 2 mobs alive, and he only got that 1 cleave off after the mob had died. His next cleave is at 38 seconds, and we know for a fact there's only 1 mob alive at this time when he does this cleave. And then we just got more general downtime. And it reflects the actual cooldown of the melee. You can see here where it shows the full length of that swing timer, and he's got 3 seconds before he gets in range and queues up another melee. I don't know how that happens, but anyway. So those are things that you should be looking at to address. And it doesn't take a trained eye for me as a warlock to be able to see some of these issues. So you guys as class leaders that really know the mechanics of your class inside and out can dig into this, and you can find some absolutely sometimes wonky shit, sometimes great shit. There's plenty of stuff here, like I showed with that corruption I cast earlier on Ragnaros, that you can better optimize. You can dig into it and see, okay, where can I play better? You know, how can I do a better job? Excuse me, making sure that I'm doing some minute optimization, because nobody in this channel is immune from minute optimization. First corruption was a resist. That's oof. And I cast it again. What the heck was I doing? See, there you go. I spent literally 3 seconds pulling up my logs for Gehennas, which I died on like 8 seconds in. And right out of the gate, I see where I made a mistake. Something that I can do better as a player is I can stop spamming corruption on the same target for some reason. So that about does it. I'm going to close it on up if there's no more questions about this. Like Storm said, if you have questions, please come to us. I actually really enjoy going through logs and figuring out how I can play better. And some of what I've been posting in the council chat has been directed at trying to spark a little bit of conversation, spark a little bit of interest from you guys to actually go into these logs and look at some of these issues for yourselves and say, okay, how can we do better across the board and bring everybody up to that 75% level to where one day, we're looking at our logs for Lucifron and, we're killing him in 23 seconds and we're absolutely blowing him down. And that speeds up our MC clear across the board. I know it doesn't seem like that big of a deal to shave off 10 seconds on a boss, but that adds up when you look at the full length of the instance. And developing good habits now means that when we're doing, Molten Core, BWL, ZG, Oni, maybe knocking all that out in one night, or more even, that raid will be XYZ amount faster. So, I really appreciate all you guys coming out and taking the time to listen. I know this is some really, really dry stuff, but you will absolutely turn your players into studs if you can get with them and work with them on using this tool properly.